Oh, you were early again.
Yeah, okay.
Hello, welcome to today's episode of Juicing the Numbers, your statistics and sports podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Tracy.
And I'm Corwin Heller.
And we're coming at you from a Sunday morning. It is Sunday, August 23rd, bright and early for Sunday time at, just before 10 a.m. That counts as early in some circles. And, Corwin, did you open up the Excel file I sent you yet?
Nope.
Well, then you're in for a happy surprise. We're going to make Corwin feel good today. We're talking about grand slams.
They hit one last night, too.
I know. So this doesn't include that because I was looking specifically at the whole four straight idea. So for anyone who has, been head firmly under a rock for the last week, the San Diego Padres decided that they hate the state of Texas and would like to burn it to the ground. And I don't disagree. And they grand slamoed in 4 straight games against the Texas Rangers, after the first of which was a highly discussed in the world of baseball politics and unwritten rule correctness. They then went and homered. It's grand slammed in 3 continuous more games for a total stretch of 4. Not included in this is the fact that they hit another grand slam against a Texas team last night in a 13-2 win against the Astros for their 5th grand slam in 6 days, which is fucking stupid, might I say.
Grand slams will continue until morale improves.
Slam Diego, Slam City.
Grand Slam Diego.
Oh, and it fits so well. Goddamn, have I not had this much fun watching a baseball team from afar in I don't know how long. And Corwin, I'm so happy we chose this team for you.
Oh, me too. You know what? If I was a Cardinals fan right now, I would be so upset. But I'm a Padres
You barely
fan,
watched
so I'm
baseball
the
this year.
happiest man on earth.
So let's talk about it. Let's get into it. So I was really curious, and there's a kind of just an odd smattering of statistics on this page. So it's part of me just continuously thinking, oh, that'd be interesting to look at. And there's nothing crazy in depth here, but figured we could have some fun with it. So looking at it just from a game perspective, in 2019, so I did all last year's stats because for one thing we have a full season worth of games and plate appearances and stats, and this isn't going to keep updating every day we talk about it. These are all relatively set in stone, and I didn't want to do a 10-year look because I just didn't feel like collecting that much data. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, you could have dug through all of, the Grand Slams over the course of baseball history or since, the end of the steroids ever, whatever, but one season's good enough. We're not here to put some, hard facts into some scientific baseball journals.
No, we are here to have fun. So last season, there were 4,858 baseball games played. And if you're thinking to yourself, that seems 2 games shy, because if you're just a savant and you know what the right number should be, you're right. It is 2 games shy because I forgot last year that the White Sox and Tigers had a game rain out late in the season. And then MLB was like, you 2 teams aren't making the playoffs. This game doesn't matter. You're not making it up. And both teams finished with 161 games. So, yeah, it literally does. So if there are 2 games missing from last season, but I think that's something that kind of happens in most seasons. In 2019, there were 154 grand slams, which at first to me felt really high, because it feels like such a unique thing to have. You can very much so count most baseball players will have single-digit grand slams by the time their career ends. So it feels
I wouldn't even say most. I would say, you hit a grand slam. That's a pretty cool achievement that isn't necessarily uncommon, but I wouldn't say most players.
Well, what I'm saying is it's tough because so much of the Grand Slam is out of your control.
Right.
Like Don Mattingly my favorite Don Mattingly fact. There's many, but my favorite one is that he hit 6 grand slams in his career. He hit all 6 in the same season and never hit another one.
Really?
Yeah.
That's actually really funny.
Yeah. And like that's the thing is like because Don Mattingly played on terrible Yankees baseball teams, and one season he just happened to get up 6 times with the bases loaded and hit a home run, and so much of that is out of your control. So despite the fact that Don Mattingly played like I don't know, it must have been over 10 years in the MLB. He only finished with like 6 grand slams. Like they don't have Luke Voigt just hit his first one of his career the other day, and he's been playing baseball for like 3 years, and he's a home run machine when he does it.
And plays for the Yankees, where it's a team that gets a lot of guys on base.
Right, and a stadium that allows for a lot of home runs. So it's challenging.
Do you want to know do you know who the all-time leader in grand slams is?
I actually don't. Who is it?
Alex Rodriguez with 25.
Ah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Followed by Lou Gehrig, Manny Ramirez, Eddie Murray, Willie McCovey, Robin Ventura, Jimmy Fox, Carlos Lee, Ted Williams, and Hank Aaron.
Robin
Hank Aaron
Ventura
also tied with Babe Ruth.
How many did Hank Aaron and Babe Ruth have?
16.
Okay.
Jimmy Fox, Carlos Lee, Ted Williams had 17. Willie McCovey, Robin Ventura had 18. Eddie Murray had 19. Manny Ramirez had 21. Lou Gehrig had 23.
Real quick, since these numbers are very low, I feel even more bolstered in my confidence for saying most players finish with under 10.
Yes.
But also, my favorite Robin Ventura Grand Slam fact is: do you know the tale of the Grand Single?
No.
Oh my God! So this is back from when Robin Ventura was on the Mets, in like the late '90s, early 2000s. Like I'm dodgy on the year because this is something that happened like when you and I were alive, but neither of us would possibly remember. So Robin Ventura was up, bases loaded against the Braves, and I forget if this was a postseason game or a regular season game. I forget which one it was. So anyway, he gets up, bases loaded, bottom of the ninth, everything you could possibly want as a fan of baseball and a hitter. And he hits the ball out at a Citi Field. It's a grand slam, and he starts running to first, and then the whole team, everyone scores. Then the whole team just starts running onto the field and just mobs him, and he never makes it to second base. And so, because he never actually rounded the bases and touched home plate, it didn't go down as a grand slam because he didn't hit a home run. The official scorecard of the game shows him as hitting a single, but he scored all 3 runs. So basically, it was like a 400-foot 3 RBI single.
That's a really funny fact. I hope it doesn't I hope it's not one of those points of contention where it's like, oh, it shouldn't have counted. They shouldn't have won that game. He didn't actually touch home. And it's like, shut the fuck up. Who cares? He hit the ball out of the park. It doesn't matter.
Well, what's so funny about it is all right, so if you want to, no one is hitting a single because, all right, let me rephrase. And I'm so sorry, folks, that we haven't talked about the statistics much yet, but no one's hitting a single because they wanted to stop at first. Right. You only hit a single because you didn't get the ball far enough away from the fielder that you could continue advancing to additional bases. And no one is scoring from first. There was a guy on first when this happened, otherwise it wouldn't have been a grand single. No one's scoring from first when the outfielders or the fielders in general are trying to get them out, because that is a very far way to run on a single. If you want to call it a single, that basically means that someone had to try to stop you from getting to second, and no one did. The only people who tried to stop Robin Ventura from getting to second were his teammates, was the rest of the New York Mets. And by the way, there is a video of this, and everyone should watch it. It's wonderful.
All right. I have a question for you, Josh.
Yeah?
What does Jose Abreu, Aaron Boone, Madison Bumgarner, and Jack Cust all have in common?
It's got to be something home run related because of who those people are. Walk-off home runs?
Incorrect, sir. I will give you one last guess.
walk-off grand
Bob
slams.
Gibson to this list too.
Walk-off grand slams.
No, they all have 2 career grand slams.
That is a weird list.
That is a very, very weird list. Vlad Guerrero Jr. already has 2 career grand slams.
Wow, that's funny. All right.
Wow.
Let's rein it back in. So
Never.
in 2019, we have 4,858 games. We have 154 grand slams, which means that we have that 3% of our games played in 2019 had grand slams in them. So the easy way of doing consecutive games grand slammed, that's what I'm going to call it now, is just, for anyone unaware of just, this is very, very basic statistics, which is why I know I'm doing it right, because my knowledge is, I opted to not take a second stats course in college because I did not care enough and I didn't feel like trying, is if you're doing, or you do addition, and if you're doing and you're doing multiplication. So we need one game with a home run, grand slam, and a second consecutive game with a grand slam, and a third consecutive game with a grand slam, and a fourth consecutive game with a grand slam. So those numbers are going to get exponentially larger because we're going to keep multiplying 3% by itself, just continuously. So the odds of hitting a grand slam in one game per 2019 stats, as we said, is 3%. Just to give it a tail behind the period here, it's 3.17%. 2 straight, the number gets immediately lower. It is 0.1005%. That is not a large number. That's a very small number. And that's just 2. 3 straight, 0.00319%. We are already at a very low mark. And then 4 times straight, 0.0000101%. This is a fascinating,
astronomically low. Did you find anything that would be similar in probability of being struck by lightning 6 times in your life is the same percentage or shit like that?
I didn't look because I had to redo some of the stats or I added more stat stuff, but I didn't. I'll put it that way. No, I didn't.
I'm going to do some quick Googling to see what I can find.
It's just such as a comically low number. And my thing is I don't know if because when with pitching for perfect games, I haven't done the numbers on it, but it's you get a lot of starting pitchers out there. There's only 23 perfect games. And the thing is I'm rather certain this is only the second time this has ever happened. I think there's one other instance of 4 straight grand slams. So there's only 2 other instances of Padres slams in 3 straight games were the most in the big league since 2006. Okay, so this had happened 2 other times. Once in 2006 and then once in 1895. And I think there is another instance of the 4 grand slam straight, but I'm having a hard time recalling what they said and what team it was. I want to say it was a weird 70s White Sox team, but this, it's so statistically abnormal because of, for one thing, all different players, all different pitchers that also are on the same team. If you told me there was a 4-game stretch where throughout baseball, 4 teams in 4 consecutive days hit grand slams, that would also be wacky because while grand slams do happen somewhat regularly, 154 last year, they're not San Diego is the first time this has happened. Sorry, my mistake. There was 3 instances of a 3-game set, and the San Diego was the first team to do it in 4 games straight. My bad. Apparently so. So the idea that one single team did it is just bananas. It's just absolute bananas.
Yeah, yes.
Have you found anything?
No. It turns out trying to Google something by a number that small, like as a percentage, gives you just a lot of math tutorials on YouTube.
That would make sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would
Um,
make sense.
so off the cuff, it would be very difficult to find. I'm sure if we had a little more time, maybe, but fuck it.
So I wanted to see, compared to MLB history, how often you would have expected this to happen based on the odds that we have very loosely calculated here and the number of games actually played in baseball history. So, according to the internet, there have been 218,000 baseball games, approximately speaking, baseball games played all time. And that means that if you take that 0.000101% and multiply it by 218,000, the number of baseball games that you would have expected for Grand Slams, or the number of 4 Grand Slam instances you would expect would be 0.22. So not even so that was actually a little bit higher than I was expecting after I saw how low that number was, that probability was. But that's still like basically this still hasn't happened. This shouldn't have happened with as small of a sample size as we have, which is crazy because the sample size of games we're talking about is 218,000.
Basically, we would have to expect, like, the only point where we would expect this to have happened with certainty is if baseball exists for 4 times as long as we currently have had baseball.
Pretty much, yeah. So like in the cells right below this, under how many games should it take, you have to change a 2 to a 1 there because I really thought that this happened one other time. But if we take one instance and divide it by the probability of this happening, you get 990,225 games. That's so basically just shy of 1 million games. It would take 1 million games for you to go, yes, it makes sense now that this has happened.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fucking crazy. Because that would basically take you another, fucking 400 years of baseball. Just about.
So you're telling me this is going to be an unbeatable record that the San Diego Padres and, more importantly, Fernando Tatis Jr. will hold for the rest of human history?
What I'm telling you is that it feels goofy, again, because 154 Grand Slams were hit last year. That's a lot of Grand Slams. Like, I understand it's not a lot relative to, like, plate appearances or at-bats or home runs as a total or whatever, but, like, that's a lot. The idea that we're talking about 4 straight, like, doesn't seem that crazy. Like, how many players have hit six home runs in 6 consecutive games? Individual players. It's happened a few times. Like last year, or was it 2 years ago? One of the I think it was 2 years ago. Kendrys Morales hit 7 home runs straight. 7 games with a home run in each games. I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Kendrys Morales, he's not even in baseball this year. Like weird shit happens. And Grand Slams take additional labor because, like, people have to be on base. Like, Kendrys Morales' home runs didn't matter if they were solo shots, 3-run, 2-run, it didn't matter. What mattered is that he hit a ball out of the park as an individual effort. This is like a team effort, and it makes it so much tougher. Which, I want to sit there and be like, no, Corwin, this is going to happen again, like, in a month. But at the same time, it's like, no, there have been 218,000 games, and this is the first 4-game stretch where this actually happened.
What would the math be if you could do this quickly because you did it with games for hitting 2 Grand Slams in an inning?
Ooh, can I pull up how many innings were played last year? Like, because that's the other thing is,
I feel like you could average it out and just multiply it by 9.
Well, I was going to say, like, if the home team's leading, then you only play like 8.5. And if, plus extra innings. You know what? You're right. Let's just call it an average. We'll call it 9. And we take our 48.58 and let's multiply that by 9. So loose guessing here, 43,722 innings. And we're trying, and so that means we had how many grand slams per inning, or how many? See, I always argue with myself about what the best way to do math is, and it never goes well.
So we have.
So real quick,
basically, it's fuck. Yeah, I'm going to confuse myself just as much if I start to try and pipe in.
Because our problem, Corwin, is that we argue with ourselves, and then when we start comparing our opinions, we will start arguing with each other, even if that means arguing against our other opinions. So we shouldn't even try. So if I use the same methodology I used with the last one, that means that in 0.352% of innings, you had a grand slam. So while that is low, it's still considerably higher than even hitting 2 straight games worth of grand slams. So if we just take that and basically square it, oh wow, that's a big number. Holy shit. Small number. I don't even really know what the right term is. 0.00124. So you have 3 times approximately better odds of hitting having your team hit a grand slam in 3 straight games than you do of someone hitting a grand slam in 2 grand slams in the same inning.
Now, could you calculate the odds of having the player who hit 2 consecutive who hit 2 grand slams in a single inning and the player who was a part of hitting 4 consecutive grand slams being a father and son duo?
I cannot. Nor can I tell you the odds of the fact that the pitcher that Fernando Tatis Sr. did this off of was the same pitcher for both grand slams. I think it was Chan-Ho Park. Forget who it was, but the idea that also the same, not only did Fernando Tatis Sr. hit 2 grand slams in the same inning, but they let the same pitcher be there the entire time.
That's just rude.
Yeah, right? Oh, sorry, you let up 8 runs, at minimum 8 runs in the first inning, Mr. Park. Our bad.
I imagine that if I was that pitcher and, I immediately give up 2 grand slams in a singular inning, after the second one, you just kind of turn to the dugout, look at the manager, throw up your arms, just like, thanks. Thank you. That was very kind of you to leave me in here for this.
Yeah, I'd be furious. I'd be furious.
Pitchers can't take that responsibility for themselves, so, obviously it is the manager's fault, regardless.
Well, I mean, there is, such things as just being responsible with, your pitcher's mentality and the number of pitches. There's pitchers are only trained to throw between 15 and 20 pitches in an inning. Once every now and then you'll watch a first inning where a guy gets over 30 pitches and you'll be like, oh shit, he might be done soon, because you're not supposed to, you aren't supposed to throw more than 30, 35 pitches in an inning. If he touches 35, he might get the hook before the second inning rolls around. So the fact that they let a guy just sit out there, chew up dingers for no good reason, and just blow through pitches also is a terrible look on the manager from a mental and physical well-being standpoint. But who am I to say?
Right.
All right. So I want to move on a little bit with the same topic before we change topics altogether.
Sure.
So that is as a team basis. Those 154 home runs is league wide. We're talking about games. We're talking about rates with games and overall baseball player statistics, not specific player. So not that I'm talking about a specific player, but looking at individual player odds, I would like to look at that for a moment. So in 2019, we had 186,512 plate appearances. There's a lot of plate appearances across all of MLB. The number of those plate appearances that happened with the bases loaded, 4,385. That is 2.35% of all plate appearances in 2019 happened with the bases loaded. So it is not a frequent occurrence.
Damn, yeah.
Literally more grand slams happened as a percent of games than bases loaded opportunities happened as a percent of plate appearances. It's not frequent.
No.
Which feels odd because I feel like I see it a lot, but I think it really speaks more to not how few plate appearances happen with the bases loaded versus how many plate appearances happened with not the bases loaded. So, I would think about it more in that vein. So we're going to put that on the shelf for a moment. In 2019, we had 186,515 plate appearances. We also had in 2019 6,776 home runs. So that means that as a percent of plate appearances, 3.63% of all plate appearances in 2019 ended with a home run. So also not like super high, but definitely higher than the last one. So that means if you navigate to the bottom part of column E, your odds of hitting a home run times or multiplied by your odds of having the bases loaded should give you the expected odd, or approximately the odds of you hitting a grand slam of 0.085%.
Damn.
And now if you look over at column C, row cell 11, if you take the number of bases loaded plate appearances and multiply that by our odds of the number of. Sorry, let me just rephrase myself. I'm looking all over my Excel spreadsheet. If you take those odds, that 0.085%, and multiply it by the number of plate appearances we had in 2018, you get 159.3 grand slams. It's based on doing this, how many grand slams you would expect to hit in a season. And that is actually very close to how many actually got hit last year. 159 versus 154.
That is like very, very much within like a very small, what's it called?
Margin of error?
Margin of error, right. Which is, I would not expect that. I fully would expect grand slams to be something that it's random enough to not even, because random would almost entail, it being close to what is expected because, there is nothing factoring in on that. But that's just a crazy close number when you think about it.
Yeah. I genuinely was shocked that, like, not that I was expecting my math to be like super off or anything, because a lot of this is just straightforward multiplication and shit. But I really wasn't expecting it to be like that dead on. Or I should say, for MLB's actual stat to be that dead on to what my percentage calculations would show. Like it's within 5. Like that's really that's how well most polling places give you for a margin of error. You know?
Right.
So if we're looking at this from a more individual player's odds, any player in a given game has a 0.085% chance of hitting a grand slam. So, AKA not good. If you walk into a game, you have a less than 0.1% chance of hitting a grand slam, which is part of what makes it fun. They're fucking rare. Mm-hmm. So a player's odds of doing it in 2 straight are 0.0000729%. It's really slim. It's not high. It's very, very low. 3 straight, it is 0. I can't even keep up with the number of zeros. 0.000000000000623. And then 4 straight, just add 3 zeros to that and then drop it down to 532. Like,
can you give me just a total number of zeros in that bottom one? Because my eyes are just refusing to let me determine how, like, what that is.
All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 zeros.
Fucking A.
Yeah. Whew. Oh, wow, that's just a
That's
lot.
just, you know, a couple quadrillionth of a percent.
It's it's so insignificant. Like
So
your
how
odds
many
of winning
games?
the
How many
lottery are
games
so
would
much
we need
better.
to play in baseball history for that to happen, Josh? Let's go. Let's pump these numbers out. I gotta know.
I got you. I can certainly do it for you. Give me 1 second.
See, I keep telling you to do these things because I know that my confidence with my statistical knowledge is just I would not be able to do it correctly. So I'm just gonna let you do it.
Oh my god, it's so big. Oh my god. All right. Wow. Um, million, billion, trillion. What's over a trillion? Quadrillion?
Yeah.
All right. So 1.879 quadrillion games. So just shy of 2 quadrillion games.
Shit, man.
Basically, we have to keep playing baseball until the heat death of the universe, and then maybe it'll happen.
God, imagine if the Padres hit a grand slam in the game 2 nights ago and they hit 6 straight. Oh,
Dude,
oh.
that's the thing. I literally can't. Like, I cannot wrap my head around the fact that this has happened and that they
Like
hit a fifth one.
if they did that and something happened with a COVID outbreak amongst a bunch of teams and MLB just decided to end the season and the World Series champion was going to be decided by a panel of voters and each team had to make their case, the Padres could just go up there, lay their dick on the table and be like, we hit 6 straight grand slams. How the fuck is anyone going to argue against that? We're the best team in baseball. And everyone, you know, Rob Manfred included, is just going to be like, they've got a point, hand in the trophy.
They're not wrong.
Yeah.
It's fucking wild, man. So that's I let me comb through my Excel spreadsheet again, but I think that's all I got. But fuck, man, like, wow, go Padres,
Go Padres. Go Dads.
go Padres. Did you enjoy the topic?
Oh, I love the topic.
Uh, I'm glad. I'm glad. I was hoping so. All right, you want to talk about some pitch value?
Yeah, let's talk about some P-Val.
All right, so Fangraphs has a really, really interesting stat that they call pitch value, which is pretty much how it sounds. You throw fastballs, so does that guy. You throw a slider, so does he. You throw a curveball, he does too. Whose curveball's better? Well, Fangraphs has stripped down these different pitches into their core essential measurables that make those pitches worth something: spin rate, movement, and they make all those things relative to the MLB average, and then they assign you a value, positive or negative, with 0 being average, for how much more valuable your pitch is, that pitch is for you than it is for other people. So, for instance, let's not start with someone crazy. Dustin May of the Dodgers. His fastball, his weighted fastball, and I don't know how they do the weighting. I really don't think it matters very much for this discussion. Is 1.7 of pitch value. That means that his fastball. And I think that this is basically, if we put this at 170, I think is that how we're thinking about it, or is that too much?
What do you mean, 170?
Like, is it 1.7% better, or is it like
I
that?
honestly don't know.
This is my problem with this. This is one of the Corwin and I were talking before the podcast. Like, how do I talk about this number? Like, I know how to read this number. How do I talk about this number?
Right, because it's not like a plus statistic where you can argue, oh, it's a clear 2% better than this pitch. It's just this number is bigger by X amount, so it's X amount better. I don't know if it's a percentage, if it's how the weight works. Neither of us do. So that's my answer. I don't know.
It seems as though from skimming through a little bit of Fangraph's descriptor of what of how to read this, it's not percentage based. It's more so outcome based. So it accumulates. I guess how kind of like how WAR does.
Right.
So anyway, Dustin May. I don't know why I said Zach. None of his letters sound like Zach. Dustin May has 1.7. We'll say additional value on his fastball than league average. That's the fucking phrase I was looking for when asking you how do we talk about this, because it's not percent. It's like additional value. That's how we're talking about it. There we go. Finally. Which is good. Like 1.7 over average. Like that's very decent. That's it's going to put you literally, as I'm reading this, in the top 30 of all pitchers, and especially since he has been kind of actually has he been mostly starting, or has he been switching between starting and relieving?
No, he's been starting.
Okay, I was going to say last year he was, or maybe 2 years ago he was starting and relieving, but versus his curveball, which is at -2, so he has a cumulative value of below 2 points below average on his curveball, which means that he's just not getting as much out of it as a league average curveball is going to get you, which he can probably get away with because of his above average fastball, but that means that he has room to grow in terms of his curveball delivery. So what are some things to you, Corwin, that jumps out about this right away? Not just Dustin May, but like this sheet.
Just how different. So, like, certain pitchers have different amount of pitches that they throw consistently. Guys like Max Fried throw a fastball, throw a slider, throw a changeup, and his best pitch, arguably, is his curveball. That's what he's known for. That's what he does well. And just the difference between the pitch values between each one of these pitches is crazy, how you could be so good at one and arguably so bad at another. And, just because I mentioned Max Fried to begin with, since coming up as a prospect, he throws this beautiful 12-6 curve with just feet of movement. It's beautiful, but P-Val views it as a negative value pitch, -1.8, because of how it's been hit by hitters over the course of the season. Meanwhile, his fastball, which is arguably not one of his top pitches, has a 6.0 P-Val because no one's been able to hit it. Nobody's been able to hit it hard or, earn runs off of it, whatever it may be. And it's really weird looking at this and trying to determine all the differences and seeing how different pitchers perform with all these different pitches.
Yeah, it's that odd balance. So to me, that's one of the wackiest parts about pitching in baseball is the idea that you can be bad at throwing some pitches, because you hear it all the time. It's most common, I think, with relievers because they have a more limited arsenal because they're not as good at throwing multiple types of pitches as starters are, which is how they ended up as relievers, which again is just so wacky. Like, you have a guy, I'm going to say Chad Green just because I can only think of Yankees whenever I think of baseball players off the top of my head, because surprise, surprise, I watch the most Yankees games. But he really only throws like a fastball and a slider. Like that's it. Because hey, if he could throw a better, he's been working on a changeup. But the idea that here you have a guy who has been playing in MLB, not even just baseball, MLB for the last 3 seasons consistently, and he is working on a changeup, or he's working on a curveball.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if you're good enough to throw a fucking baseball 97 miles an hour, how are you not good at throwing a curve? And it's that's how intricate the mechanics behind pitching are. This isn't any type of slander on any reliever. I'm not sitting here and talking about how Chad Green's a miserable piece of shit and we should trade him because another team would be thrilled about that statement. But it really speaks like how wildly different the grip and mechanics are between trying to throw your four-seam fastball and a slider or a knuckle curve or a change. Like, it really, really does differentiate. And like we were saying, like, I guess let's just jump the gun and let's talk about Trevor Bauer here, who leads all of baseball on his fastball by a lot, by 2.5 basically.
An insane amount.
11.7 additional value on his fastball over league average. 11.7. That is so fucking high. Number 10 on this list is Sonny Gray. I guess tied with Garrett Cole. 4.6.
Young front runner right now.
Yeah. These are two dudes who are having phenomenal seasons. 4.6. Trevor Bauer's at 11.7. That's how much RPM he's getting. That's how much velocity he's getting. How much movement he's getting. It's crazy that's where he's at. And then look at his curveball, negative 1.9. Yep. His changeup, negative 0.1. And again, like, it's not even like that crazy, I guess, but it's just like wild that you could be on those different ends of a spectrum.
And like, obviously Trevor Bauer is having a spectacular season so far, but oh man, like the number 11.7 when, referencing p-val, it's something where I'll pay attention to it. I'll check on it, throughout the season and see where guys are at. It's insane when a number is that high. And I will jump over to the negative side because you were talking about Chad Green being a Yankees fan. I was thinking, like, what Padres pitchers do I know, like, off the top of my head, like what their pitch arsenal is? And I thought of, okay, Chris Paddock, he's a fastball guy. Needs that fastball to set up the changeup. He has a slider, but it's nothing spectacular. He has a curveball. It's good. It's nothing spectacular. And I looked and just happened to sort by negative p-val, only to find that he has the worst fastball in MLB at a negative 7.2.
Wow.
He's been having a rough year. He hasn't been able to really locate the fastball. And man, does this prove it. Like, this is just, that's ugly. That's ugly as sin. Ugh.
Wow. Yeah, that's what the kids say is not good. But let's keep talking about positives. Let's jerk all these MLB players off to make them feel better about their millions. Best slider in baseball before you do any sorting. Any guesses? Anyone in your head?
It's got to be Chaz. Well, in my mind, Chaz Rowe or Adam Ottavino.
Chaz Rowe, not in the top 10. Adam Ottavino, who was the guy I was thinking of, also not in the top 10. Number 1 is Kenta Maeda.
I mean, yeah, Kenta's a great pitcher having a great year, but not what I would have expected.
And what's crazy is looking at this compared to his fastball. So he's at 6.3 additional value on his slider, 6.2 additional value on his fastball. And that is like, I'm just combing through. It looks like it's the best 1-2 that I see here. Mm-hmm. Because like number 2 is Dylan Bundy on the Angels, which is also a wild thought. 5.7. Right? 5.7 additional value on his slider, negative 1.7 additional value on his fastball. So he's getting, knocked around a bit on his fastball, but he's having a lot of success with his slider. But so if you add those two numbers together, I mean, he's rocking a solid 4 of additional value between those two pitches versus Kenta Maeda's 12.5. Like, damn. And like Dinelson Lamet. Dinelson Lamet. That is a wild first name. On the Padres, a really solid 1-2 punch here also. 4.3 additional value on his slider, 5.4 additional value on his fastball. That's a 9.7 overall between those two pitches. That seems like a great 1-2 punch, and it looks like those are basically the only two pitches he throws. And that's still like 3 full additional value points less than Kenta Maeda is getting with between his fastball and slider. It's just that is good for him. Like that really shows a lot as to why this season might have been or may be as successful as it currently is for him.
And it's funny because he throws those 2 pitches. He's been having great success this season. A clear ace, top 15 pitcher this year easily. But his control on those pitches is almost non-existent. It's wild watching him pitch because it's all over the place. It just happens to be he gets insane movement and just nobody can touch it.
And that's kind of the problem with like the moving pitches, the non-fastball-y pitches. Is like because I watch Yankees games, so I see Adam Ottavino have this problem a lot too. You end up walking a bunch of people because it's like you're either going to move it so drastically that it's going to like bounce right out of the strike zone, which means if someone doesn't swing at it while it looks like it's going to be in the strike zone, it's going to end up being a ball, and then you throw that kind of pitch a lot. So surprise, surprise, you throw a lot of balls. But if you can get the swings, then you end up becoming a 3 true outcomes pitcher. Like there's no 2 ways about it.
Mm-hmm. Which is a thought that I haven't thought of before. A 3 true outcome pitcher. Or 2 true outcome pitcher, I guess.
Well, and then the problem is if you leave it, if you throw, it is really a 3 true outcomes because if you throw a slider and it doesn't slide, well, then you've just thrown an 85-mile-an-hour pitch down the middle. And
right.
That will leave the ballpark.
Oh, man. All right. I say we move over to curveball because I'm fucking done. You know what? Let's see who has the worst slider in baseball first.
All right, you tell me that, and then I already sorted by cutter, so I want to talk about cutter.
All right, perfect. All right. Do you have any guesses who would have the worst worst slider? Excuse me.
Worst slider. I have no real assumption of who this would be.
It's Pittsburgh Pirate Trevor Williams.
Really?
-4.5. Rookie Brady Singer has -4.2. Matt Boyd, who was, an up-and-coming breakout star last year, has a -4 p-val on his slider to match a -6.3 on his fastball. He doesn't have a single positive pitch.
Jesus Christ, that's not good.
That might be the worst 1-2 punch in baseball.
All right, so let's talk about cutters. Let's talk about Mariano Rivera's favorite pitch, the only pitch he had. And let's see who's doing well. We got Dallas Keuchel of the White Sox and Yu Darvish of the Cubs, both here basically at number 1. Wow, they're having very identical pitch value seasons here. Both throwing the cutter with 6.9 points of additional value over average, which seems to be kind of like the watermark for like where you'll be at number 1 so far between sliders and cutters. Obviously, fastball was very different, probably just because of the volume of fastballs thrown. But damn, so Dallas Keuchel and Yu Darvish, average value, additional value on their fastball, 1.4 for both of them. Additional value on their sliders, Keuchel -0.4, Darvish -0.8. And then additional value on their cutters, both at 6.9. Like they're only off of each other by 0.4 value points for those 3 pitches on the season. That's kind of wild.
Yeah. Yu Darvish just, happens to throw 5 pitches. No, he does throw 6, which is just insane to me.
Yeah, well, and that's one of the things we were just talking about. Like it's one thing to have somewhat of a subpar pitch, but if you throw one pitch super fucking great, like it really covers a lot of ground for the other subpar ones. And the fact that Darvish throws 6 is just like that repertoire is just going to be so hard to fuck with when you're constantly getting all those different looks. So I just want to see what their seasons look like real quick. So Darvish on the season right now, 1.2 WAR, Keuchel 1.1, Darvish 4 wins and 1 loss. Keuchel 4 wins and 2 losses. I know that doesn't really matter much. Darvish 1.8 ERA. Keuchel 2.65 ERA. Darvish a 0.9 WHIP. Keuchel a 1.0818 WHIP. With Keuchel throwing 7 more innings than Darvish, but Darvish having 15 more strikeouts than Keuchel. But Keuchel is more of a ground ball, fly ball kind of guy. So he's actually value-wise these are relatively similar. Outside of strikeouts, they're pretty close.
Yeah. Which, if you ask me, hey, like, I'm going to give you two pitchers comparison. In your mind, how similar do they pitch? If you told me, Dallas Keuchel and Yu Darvish, I'd be like, oh, wildly different. Keuchel's a pinpoint command guy, all ground balls. Darvish, has wicked movement and gets the strikeouts, that kind of stuff. But I'm clearly wrong.
As you should be, as we all expect. Corwin Heller done goofed.
Yeah, that's me.
All right, let's keep trucking into curveballs here.
It's the way it is. What's up?
Ooh, are you happy about? Did you sort by curveballs yet?
No, I sorted by worst cutters first.
Who do we got?
You'll like this. Nathan Eovaldi.
Suck a dick. What? Jesus Christ! Why is he throwing it?
I don't know. After that, it's Tyler Anderson with negative 3.1. Ryan Yarbrough with the Rays at negative 1.6, and no one else has anything worse than negative 0.3.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. That's hard to even mentally grasp. Let's talk about curveballs, because your boy Shane Bieber is leading MLB in curveball value. 5.5 additional value on his curveball, leading baseball, just over Jose Berrios of the Twins at 5.3. Framber Valdez with the Astros at 4.5. Those are the only players over 4.
Wow, what a weird pitch repertoire for him. He throws a fastball at negative 4.1 p-val, a curveball with positive 5.3, and a changeup with negative 0.8.
Yeah, that is absolutely bizarre.
Weird. Oh, sorry, that's Jose Berrios, not Framber.
Yeah, that's Jose Berrios. So what's interesting is if I'm not sure this is how anybody actually does this. This is just how I think. But that gives his total repertoire a positive number, like 0.4 total additional value. But like it seems like the wackiest way to get that. And then you look at Shane Bieber, and everything's positive, and that is so impressive because that's so far something I don't think we've seen yet.
No, as something I was going to mention, just on top of the fact that Shane Bieber is fucking amazing and I love him. But man, I really wish there was a way to see total p-val, have that total cumulative number. I'm sure if we exported this, it would be the easiest thing in the world to do.
Oh, it would be super easy, yeah. But that sounds like work.
I now see. All right, I can do this. All
right, while you're doing that, I'll do the Corwin thing. I'll sort this by worst curveball. Or lowest p-val to see what is the worst curveball. Holy shit. Lance McCullers Jr., negative 5. That's bad. He should not be allowed to wear pitching ninja gear anymore because that's a terrible, terrible p-val on a curveball. It's almost doubly worse than the next guy, John Lester, at negative 2.7. Of the Cubs, and then Garrett Richards on the Padres, negative 2.1. Dustin May of the Dodgers at negative 2, and Trevor Bauer of the Reds at negative 1.9, and then everyone else is doing better, but that's a startlingly bad p-val for Lance McCullers Jr. there on his curveball. While Corwin's still exporting, I'm going to look at changeups. And I'm very curious about this list because this, I think, if you're a power fastball guy, the changeup's got to be like the pitch for you, and I'm immediately proven wrong as none of these guys throw very hard. Number 1 on this list is Johnny Cueto of the Giants, 6.6 additional value on his changeup, with a negative 3.1 on his fastball, which means his fastball is getting beat up quite a bit, but his changeup is really saving his ass on things. Which is just such an odd and interesting, although everyone here kind of has a relatively low. Wow. Hold on. I'm gonna save Chris Paddock for when you're done because we have to talk about what's happening with Chris Paddock's p-val. But Kyle Freeland of the Rockies, 6.4 additional value on his changeup. Kyle Hendricks of the Cubs, 5.2, and no one else is above 4. Sorry, above 5. Chris Paddock, 4.4 additional value on his changeup. That's good. Negative 0.5 additional value on his curveball. It's whatever. Negative 0.1 on his cutter. It's whatever. Negative 7.2 on his fastball.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That makes him good for the 6th worst pitcher in all of baseball. That's qualified by cumulative PWAR.
Oh, so you got it all figured out?
Mm-hmm. I did. Do you want to? There's a pretty clear top 5. Do you want to throw some names out there that all 4 of them we have talked about so far, so it shouldn't be a difficult list to put together.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm feeling pretty good that Trevor Bauer is gonna be up there.
Yes,
I'm feeling
in at number 3.
I'm feeling pretty good that Yu Darvish is gonna be up there.
He is number 5.
I'm feeling pretty good about Kenta Maeda being up there.
He is number 2.
I'm feeling good about Lance Lynn being up there.
That would be number 4.
Ooh, so I'm just missing number 1?
Yeah.
Shane Bieber?
Yep.
I got all 5. I'm very impressed. Wow.
Lance Lynn's fastball definitely put him over
9, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I saw it, but I was like, we can't keep bringing up Lance Lynn just to be like, how is he still this good? Because it's the only thing we ever have to say.
I truly hate Lance Lynn just because he's so good at baseball and just shouldn't be, or at least hasn't been. And it's so irrational, or like it's so out of my comfort zone for acceptance that I don't want to like him, and I don't. And that is so unbelievably unfair to Lance Lynn, who I'm sure is a wonderful person. I just can't accept it. He also plays for the Rangers, so go fuck that guy.
I'm never going to meet him. Fuck you, Lance Lynn. Yeah, sure. I'll join the chorus here.
But let me do the total p-val, cumulative p-val for these top 5. Shane Bieber 13.6, Kenta Maeda at 13.5, Trevor Bauer 13.3, Lance Lynn at 12.2, and Yu Darvish at 10.4. Those are the only 5 pitchers above 10.
Interesting.
2 Padres actually round out the next 2. Zach Davies, of all pitchers, and Dinelson Lamet at 9.8 and 9.7.
I was wondering about Zach Davies because he's number 4 on the changeup list. So I'm like literally looking at his name right now. And I think one of the biggest things going for a player like Zach Davies is that like none of his pitches are like stand out crazy big, but none of his pitches are negative. And that's a big deal there, I think.
He's very much falling under the category of small sample size command pitcher that just hasn't allowed himself to get rocked yet, which is bound to come at some point.
Sweet regression. She is a fickle bitch.
You know what? I'll take it because Fernando Tatis Jr. is refusing to regress towards the mean, so Zach Davies actually regressing, I'll take it. That's a trade-off I am very willing to accept.
Very fair. 3 worst changeup pitchers thus far this season. John Gray at negative 4.4. Max Scherzer at negative 2.7. And Zach Gallen at negative 2.4. And nobody else has worse than negative 2. Not names I necessarily would have expected. So that brings us to SF, and split finger. Is this a split fastball?
Sinker. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to say we were trying to figure out what this was right before we started. So there's only 5 pitchers that have even thrown this. So everyone here is in the top 5 and the bottom 5. That leaves us with Kevin Gausman of the Giants leading the pack at 2.8. Yu Darvish of the Cubs at positive 1.5. Matt Shoemaker of the Blue Jays at 0.9. Nathan Eovaldi at negative 1.6. And Mike Fiers at negative 4.4.
It's actually really crazy how smooth this curve would be. Just plotting these 5 points. It would look like something out of a textbook where it's like uh, a left skewed, right skewed, whatever it would be. Right skewed, I get left skewed. Um, just like normal distribution curve. 0.9, 1.5, 2, negative 1.6, negative 4.4. I'm not going to graph
Yeah,
it up because that's just minuscule amounts of work that I don't want to do. But yeah, that would end up fucking.
that would be a very satisfying looking curve. And then no one's thrown a knuckleball. So
Bullshit.
we've concluded with pitch with p-val, pitch value, and yeah, man. Anything else to say on pitch value?
Do you want to go over the worst pitchers in all of baseball right now?
Ooh, I do. Let's give me that bottom 5.
All right. Do you want to guess any names before we go into it?
Nathan Eovaldi has to be there,
He is number 5.
as in 5th worst.
5th worst, yes.
Okay. Ooh, I don't even know who else did we talk. No, I don't know who else is there. I can't even think of who else would be there.
So I will say some names that are really sticking out to me that is insane. Max Scherzer is not in the bottom 5, but he is the 14th worst pitcher by p-val with a negative 0.7 total repertoire, with only his cutter and his slider being positive. His cutter at 0.7, his slider at 4.7. His fastball is negative 2.3, his curveball is negative 1.1, and his changeup is negative 2.7. That really sticks out. Luis Castillo has a negative 2.2. He is the 10th worst pitcher by p-val, negative 1.8 fastball, positive 0.5 slider, and a negative 0.9 changeup. He also arguably has one of, if not the best changeup in all of baseball. So it's very interesting to see that be negative. Lance McCullers and Chris Paddock are 7th and 6th worst, with negative 3.1 and negative 3.4 respectively. And our bottom 5, excuse me. Nathan Eovaldi with negative 3.9, Derek Holland of the Pirates with negative 4.1, Kyle Gibson of the Rangers with negative 4.5, Mike Fiers of the Athletics with negative 6.5, and Matthew Boyd of the Tigers with a negative 10.7.
Whew.
A
Wow.
negative 6.3 fastball, a negative 4 slider, negative 0.6 curveball, excuse me, and a positive 0.2 changeup.
Jesus Christ.
The fact that he has such an astronomically bad fastball, but still a positive changeup is very confusing to me.
Well, all right. So I was thinking about this because I forget who else we saw in the changeup column that had this going on. So someone else we were talking. Maybe it was Chris Paddock with like a negative 7 fastball, but like a positive 4.5 change.
That would be it.
All right. So my guess is their fastball is getting fucking pounded, right? So batters see what looks like a fastball coming in, and they're thinking to themselves, "Oh, meatball city," and then just swing out of their fucking shoes, and it ends up being a changeup.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Yep.
That would be my intuitive guess. I don't know if that has any basis in reality, but I would imagine that like if you throw something so poorly and then you throw the thing that looks like the thing that's being thrown so poorly that everyone's just rocking it out of existence, that they're probably going to swing and miss on the other thing. So yeah, that's Josh's guess. Trademarked.
Any other information you want to see, hear, learn?
No, I'm all good. I'm all set. This was fun.
I wish there was more pitchers on here. There's only 59 qualified pitchers right now. I would love to see some more that, are doing much worse or much better.
You could always change the minimum innings pitched on the Fangraphs leaderboard and change it from qualified to whatever number you feel like.
That's very true.
So
I don't know how to do that.
just go up to the
Oh, here
top.
you go.
Yeah.
Minimum innings pitched. What would be a good number? I don't know what qualified is right now. So
I well, that's why we're getting a lot of stars. I think it's like 5 or 6 innings pitched per game on average. Kind of like how qualified batters 3.1 plate appearances per game. It's going to be something like that.
the lowest number I see here is like 22. So I'll go 20. Let's see what pitch value. Man, this is just kind of really slow. Yeah, I mean nothing truly spectacular that's jumping out. Robbie Ray all of a sudden comes in with the worst fastball in all of baseball with a -7.4.
Jesus.
I'm basically just looking at if there's a new best worst. Yeah, nothing's really jumping out all that much.
All right.
Which is almost disappointing. But
I understand.
it is. Man, Lance McCullers, that's a bad curveball. -5.
Yeah, that is a no good curveball. That's one of those not good curveballs that he should stop throwing.
Still don't have any knuckleball pitchers. We do have a lot more split finger fastball pitchers, though.
Is Tanaka there?
Tanaka is not there.
I wonder where he is. Tanaka?
How many
Tanaka?
innings has he pitched? You know,
Not a single clue. He missed a couple games. All right. Well, let's get out of here. We'll keep up with this list as the season goes on, and just make sure we include some of the not qualified pitchers so that we don't only get starters. But yeah, let's. Any final thoughts on any of the things we did today?
not on anything that we did today. I know I just sent this over to you, Josh, but a Mike Trout rookie card just sold for $3.9 million. So, God, I hate people with enough money to spend $4 million on a baseball card, but that's another discussion.
Yeah, fuck whoever bought it. Go Mike Trout. Whoever bought it, I hope that card burns in the fire for you. That fire being whatever fire burns down your entire home. No, not really. That's so mean.
Unless you're Jeff Bezos.
Oh, then I hope all of your houses burn down. Jeff Bezos could fund the like an entire armada of planes to put out the California wildfires and just chooses not to. That's who Jeff Bezos is. He could solve all of the world's problems and is just deciding continuously no.
Josh, I have some pretty breaking news right now.
Go ahead.
Adam Schefter is reporting that the Ravens will be moving on from Pro Bowl safety Earl Thomas today, either through trade or releasing him for conduct detrimental to the team by getting into a fight and punching safety Chuck Clark.
Jesus. Wow. Fucking wow. Okay.
I like you. It was one of these rumors that like you kind of saw coming a little bit. You knew, there was a lot of tension there. But man, releasing him, that's big for the Ravens. That's huge.
Yeah, I guess
front runner if he gets released.
I guess we'll hopefully have an update in time for when we record the next podcast. For Thursday, we record on Wednesday, so hopefully we have news on where he ends up going by then. I'd imagine with something like this, the Ravens are probably going to be pretty willing to move on from him quickly. So hopefully we have something for that by then. But yeah, damn, can't believe that.
Mm-hmm.
But all right, let's get on out of here. I want to give a reminder that this upcoming Thursday's podcast will once again be the sports edition as we move back to that. Corwin and I will, as we've been saying, we are going to start a movies podcast so that we can still be talking about the movies. It'll be coming out the day after this releases, this upcoming Tuesday, or if you're listening to this, tomorrow. The 25th will be our first edition of the new show, Juicing the Big Screen. So keep an eye out for it. We're very excited about it. And that's that on that. So if you want to follow the show on Twitter, you can do so at JuicingPod. You want to hit us up via email, you can do so at juicethenumbers@gmail.com. And until Thursday, Y'all have a good one.
Bye.